Welcome to Legacy of Revenge. Please subscribe to my channel. Let's start. Grandma, Mom isn't moving, help. Late at night, I was abruptly awoken by a call from my granddaughter. When I asked my granddaughter where her dad was, I received a shocking response. He kicked Mom's belly and left in a panic. I rushed to their house to find my daughter unconscious on the floor. Later at the hospital, I learned something unimaginable from my granddaughter. How could he do this? I'll never forgive that man. At that moment, I decided to seek revenge on my son-in-law. My name is Amelia. I'm 65 years old and recently retired from a company where I had worked for a long time. My husband passed away a few years ago and I've been living alone since. I have a daughter. Her name is Emily. Emily works at a bank and married a public servant named George 7 years ago. They had a child, Sophia, who is now 5 years old. My son-in-law, George, was gentle and polite, so I felt at ease leaving Emily with him. Emily, who lives about 30 minutes away by car, often brings Sophia to visit, and I cherish the moments with my adorable granddaughter. One day, as usual, my daughter and granddaughter came over, and Emily and I were sipping tea, watching Sophia play with a smile. Emily, speaking of which, it seems George got transferred recently. Grandma, oh, is that the division that supports child rearing? Emily, something like that. He's been very busy, often coming home late at night. I used to think that government workers always got off work on time, but it seems times have changed. Grandma, I thought George, being so kind-hearted, might be well-suited for a job in welfare and child-rearing support. It sounds like he has a lot of overtime. It must be tough. You have a demanding job too, Emily. But be sure to support George. If you ever need help, like picking Sophia up from daycare, let me know. Emily, thank you. After that conversation, Emily stopped visiting for a while, occasionally messaging with responses like, "I've been busy lately. Sorry I can't visit you." I didn't want to intrude too much on their lives, and I felt it wasn't my place to tell Emily to come home. More than anything, I hoped that they were living peacefully and happily. One day while I was out shopping, I saw George. He was in a suit, driving an official car, and next to him was a young woman. I had heard from Emily that he sometimes had work-related outings, so he was probably on duty. I didn't think much of it at the time and wished him well in my heart. About a month later, on a Sunday, I had an errand near Emily's house and thought I'd stop by. However, despite waiting, I received no response from her. I felt concerned and didn't want to just head home without checking, so I decided to visit Emily's house. I thought if she wasn't home, that's fine, and if she had something else to do, I would just leave. However, when I rang the doorbell, I immediately heard her daughter's voice. "Sophia, Mom, what's wrong?" Emily, sounding surprised, seemed unaware that I had tried to contact her. "Grandma, I told her over the intercom that since I was nearby, I wanted to see her, but Emily seemed hesitant for some reason." Just then, I heard George's voice. "George, Mom, please wait a moment. It's a bit messy in the room." "Grandma, oh, George, I'm sorry for coming unannounced." "George, it's okay. Please meet Sophia too." After waiting for a while, the front door opened. To my surprise, Emily looked significantly thinner than when I had seen her 3 months ago. "Grandma, Emily, what happened? You seem to have lost so much weight." Emily replied with a forced smile. "Emily, I've been dieting." Sensing something was off, George kindly offered me slippers. "George, thank you." As I entered the living room, Sophia excitedly greeted me. "Sophia, Grandma, I'm so happy to see you." My beloved granddaughter's joy made me smile, and she tugged on my hand, inviting me to play. While playing with her, I chatted with my daughter and George about casual topics. Suddenly, Sophia spilled the coffee I had been given. Though the coffee was lukewarm, I checked to ensure she wasn't burnt, and to my horror, I discovered a painful-looking bruise on her arm. "Grandma, Emily, what happened to Sophia's bruise?" Startled, I looked at Emily, who seemed frozen, unable to respond. "Emily, she seems to have fallen while playing. It's nothing serious. It doesn't hurt anymore." I trusted their words and felt relieved. Emily took Sophia to change her wet clothes, but they took a long time to return. George went to check on them, and after a while, all three returned to the living room. "George, Mom, we have plans to go out soon." "Grandma, oh, I wasn't aware." "I'm sorry for intruding." As I was leaving, the family saw me to the door. I patted Sophia's head, thanked George, and waved goodbye. Emily's expression seemed clouded, which bothered me, but I pretended not to notice and went home. Weeks later, in the middle of the night, my phone rang. The call was from Emily's mobile. Bracingly answering, I was met with Sophia's tearful voice. "Sophia, Grandma, Mom isn't moving. Help." "Grandma, what happened?" "Sophia." "Where's your dad?" "Sophia, he kicked Mom's belly and left." Panicking at the situation, I told her to unlock the front door and rushed to their house. Upon arrival, I found Emily collapsed in the living room. She was unconscious, and Sophia was sobbing beside her. However, there was no sign of George anywhere. With trembling hands, I took out my phone and called an ambulance. Soon, the ambulance arrived, and I accompanied Sophia inside. Inside the ambulance, the atmosphere was tense. My anxiety grew, and I could feel my heart racing. Arriving at the hospital while praying for my daughter's safety, I comforted Sophia by rubbing her back. "Sophia, Grandma, calm down. Can you tell me what happened to your mom and dad?" Sophia began to speak, occasionally sobbing as she tried her best to explain. "Sophia, well, when I woke up, Mom and Dad were fighting. Dad was yelling something at Mom." "Grandma, then what happened?" "Sophia, I went to Mom and begged Dad not to hurt her, but then Dad got angry with me, just like he always does, and Mom shielded me." Taken aback by this shocking revelation, I asked. Sophia nodded affirmatively. According to her, after shielding Sophia, Emily was pushed by George and then brutally kicked while she was down. George left immediately, and Sophia, seeing that Emily was motionless, panicked and sent an SOS to me. "Sophia, but Dad told me, if you ever tell anyone about me hitting you, you'll never see your mom again." "Sophia, does that mean I don't see Mom anymore?" Realizing the pain and hardship Sophia had been enduring, I held her close, tears forming in my eyes. "Grandma, Sophia, you've been so brave. It's all right now." Who would have thought that George, who always seemed so gentle, had such a side? It was hard to believe, but considering the injuries on Sophia and Emily's recent behavior, it made sense that George had been physically abusing them regularly. While I was deep in thought, the doctor who was treating Emily came over and began explaining her condition. The doctor said she had internal bleeding and there was a possibility of ruptured organs, so she would be undergoing surgery. "Grandma, she's in a critical condition. Please be prepared for the worst." I repeatedly tried to call George to inform him, but I couldn't get through. Signing the surgical consent form, I anxiously awaited the end of the emergency operation. Outside the operating room, I was trembling with fear and anger, clenching my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. "Grandma, I will never forgive that man for hurting my daughter and even my granddaughter. I'm determined to make him pay." At that moment, I noticed Emily's phone tightly gripped in Sophia's hand, who had fallen asleep leaning on me. Picking up the phone, I discovered something shocking, and I patted Sophia's head, thanked George, and waved goodbye. Emily's expression seemed clouded, which bothered me, but I pretended not to notice and went home. Weeks later, in the middle of the night, my phone rang. The call was from Emily's mobile. Bracingly answering, I was met with Sophia's tearful voice. "Sophia, Grandma, Mom isn't moving. Help." "Grandma, what happened?" "Sophia." "Where's your dad?" "Sophia, he kicked Mom's belly and left." Panicking at the situation, I told her to unlock the front door and rushed to their house. Upon arrival, I found Emily collapsed in the living room. She was unconscious and Sophia was sobbing beside her. However, there was no sign of George anywhere. With trembling hands, I took out my phone and called an ambulance. Soon, the ambulance arrived and I accompanied Sophia inside. Inside the ambulance, the atmosphere was tense. My anxiety grew and I could feel my heart racing. Arriving at the hospital while praying for my daughter's safety, I comforted Sophia by rubbing her back. "Sophia, Grandma, calm down. Can you tell me what happened to your mom and dad?" Sophia began to speak, occasionally sobbing as she tried her best to explain. "Sophia, well, when I woke up, Mom and Dad were fighting. Dad was yelling something at Mom." "Grandma, then what happened?" "Sophia, I went to Mom and begged Dad not to hurt her, but then Dad got angry with me, just like he always does, and Mom shielded me." Taken aback by this shocking revelation, I asked. Sophia nodded affirmatively. According to her, after shielding Sophia, Emily was pushed by George. She never said anything about it. It was written that 2 months ago, when Emily confronted George about a possible affair, he suddenly became violent towards her. He had frequently abused her since, even injuring Sophia. Knowing she had been threatened by George to keep quiet and didn't want to worry me, Emily hadn't been able to confide in me. She had even taken out a loan to hire a detective agency to gather evidence of the affair, having had her savings book taken away by George. The most recent diary entry read, "I finally gathered all the evidence. I'll bring up the divorce today." During their discussion, George must have kicked Emily in the stomach. As I said this, he began to sweat profusely. "George, no, this is a misunderstanding." Unable to bear his excuses any longer, I shouted at him in anger. "Grandma, what do you mean misunderstanding? Having an affair at work and injuring your wife and child. What were you thinking?" George shifted his eyes again, gesturing for calm, saying, "George, come on, let's calm down. Let's settle this quietly for both our sakes. If this gets out, I'll lose my job, and who knows what will happen to Sophia. You understand, right? Isn't it already late? I've reported everything to your workplace with evidence, including your affair and how you injured Emily and Sophia." Their daughter had not only recorded evidence of the affair, but also an audio of the time George became violent. I compiled it all in an email and sent it to his workplace. "Grandma, do you understand the consequences of doing such a thing? Everyone will be unhappy." I stared coldly at the flustered George. "Grandma, isn't the Child Future section of the Health and Welfare Center meant to help mothers and children in distress? What's wrong with consulting them about actual events?" George was at a loss for words. Suddenly, his phone rang. As George answered, he looked pale and fled, muttering something. When he hung up, he looked furious. "George, I was confronted by my boss. What have you done, old woman?" George, with a demonic expression, approached me menacingly. I pushed him away. "Grandma, I've also got a medical certificate for Emily's severe injury this time." Prepare yourself. I'm reporting this to the police. What the police? Old woman, enough is enough. George glared at me with bloodshot eyes. But at that moment, Emily woke up and spoke in a hoarse voice. Emily, George, let's get a divorce. The next moment, hospital staff, alerted by the commotion, rushed into the room. I explained everything and they called the police. George, who tried to attack me, was restrained by the hospital staff. He was yelling as he was taken away by the police. The rest of the story: Emily recovered and successfully divorced George. Emily claimed damages from her ex-husband and his mistress. George, facing charges of assault against Emily and Sophia, was detained by the police. Adding to my accusations, George, already known for poor work ethics, was suspended due to the incident. He's still on trial, but if convicted, he may be dismissed. It seems he's been abandoned by his family and friends for his malicious deeds. George's mistress took a leave from work due to the affair becoming known at their workplace and eventually resigned. After some time, Emily, who won the property division, repaid her debts and returned to our family home with Sophia. Living with my gradually smiling daughter and innocent granddaughter is noisy yet joyful. I look forward to enjoying Sophia's growth in hope for a peaceful life ahead. Thanks for joining us. Please like and share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Ring the bell icon. Thanks for joining us. Like and share this video. Also subscribe my channel and ring bell icon.